Most people that I am associated with, the business owners I know, et cetera, they're using AI in some form or another. Most of the people I know, though, are not. Haven't figured out the harness. They don't understand the power of it. And maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But they're definitely not using it and looking at it in the same manner as the opportunity that it is.
This is episode 226 of the We Live to Build podcast with Ken London, the founder and CEO of RevHeat, a US-based company that helps brands focus on scaling their sales in a smart way. In this conversation, we talk about the use of AI with sales and what he thinks the future of that looks like, mistakes brands make when it comes to hiring their first salespeople and growing their sales, and much more. So if you're interested in sales and growing your business, then this is a conversation for you. Why are you so interested in sales?
Right? Your company doesn't sell anything. You don't have employees. You don't have job opportunities. Just the restricting factor on so many companies is I had a contractor / vendor that I worked with not too long ago. And she said to me, Ken, there's a really big difference between being the best and the best known. And what good's being the best if people don't know who you are, and they can't know how you are unless you've got the sales machine dialed in.
A company is making 50 to 100,000 a month. What breaks at that point that prevents them from growing?
More importantly, maybe just the things that haven't been established yet. You'd be surprised. You can get to 50, 100,000 a month. You can talk income or sales. And you can do that without really having anything formalized and systematically in place. Most of the time at that number, the founder is still, say, the primary salesperson. And they mistake their success for how easy it is for others to do it. So they start to hire. And they hire their first salesperson. And it's the biggest disaster of a hire they've ever done in their career. It's just horrible. And the reason is the founder, the biggest misnomer about hiring talent when you're going from founder-led sales to the next level is the founder doesn't understand that they're typically seeing things that are much further down the pipeline. These are people who are already going to make a decision. Whereas when you get a seller, they're typically getting people at the top of the pipeline where they've got to develop relationships, rapport, help them find opportunities. And the founder also has one thing going for them that nobody else does: authority. Sean, if I break this, I'll fix it. And the seller can't. And so there's a really big, when you talk about that going to the next level, there's a really big difference between going from founder-led to adding a salesperson, because it's not just about relationships. It's not just, you don't just put a coin in somebody's back like a piggy bank and make a move. That's just not how it works. And too many people think that's the way sales still is. And in the modern day of selling, that's not the case. So what typically starts to really break is that idea of when you're trying to hire somebody, and most founders are technical in nature, so they don't know sales. But then you're trying to hire somebody into a specialty that you don't understand, and you haven't put any of the systems and processes in place, and you wonder why the first 5 people you hire got fired also.
So what can they do to fix this and to get out of that?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that a founder needs to do is they need to do the thing that's going to make them most uncomfortable, and they should, market right now. And then what they should be doing is they should actually invest some in their own personal sales training so they can actually understand process, what it looks like, how it feels, what the words are, so they can communicate more effectively and understand what needs to be successful. The second thing, at that level, you probably haven't dialed in why in the heck people are really buying you. You think they're buying you because you've got some cool software that gives them better reporting. Well, if you're selling a $50,000, software, I promise you, they're not buying it because the PDFs have 4 colors on them instead of 2. But that's what you think. So then you tell your sales guy, hey, go out there and tell them we have 4 colors. So that's kind of the 2 components. They need to invest a little bit in getting their own sales education and acumen, at least to that of a high schooler. Right. And I think that's the first component. And the second component is they've got to be ruthless about understanding the problems that are going on in their potential prospect's head and why they're really buying them. I can tell you, we've worked with $200 million companies who don't have ideal client profiles, personas. They don't have any reason why people are buying them, but somehow they made it to 200 million. It's mystifying.
I was actually talking to a guy the other day who's trying to monetize his idea. I work with this platform called Growth Mentor. So I do free mentoring sessions a few times a week with different people from around the world. It's really interesting to see where they are in their journey and what they're thinking and all that. And he's a technical guy who figured out how to trade stocks and all of that. And he started writing a newsletter and he started getting a bunch of people following him for this. But his social media profiles are all about being a software developer. And he's like, I've spoken to a few of the people, and like I think they're analysts, but like I don't really know who they are, and I want to monetize. I'm thinking of making an app because I know how to make apps. And I was like, well, you want to monetize? Like he wants to make an app. He doesn't want to monetize a newsletter. So I was like, do you know why these people are reading your newsletter? Do you know what they're gaining from it? He's like, I've spoken to a few of them and they said that it's like, I have access to the CEOs and people you're talking to, but like your analysis is really great. It's like, okay, so they find your information valuable. How can you convince them to pay you? He said, well, some of them were giving me money, even though my content is free. They're just like giving me money. And I was like, okay, well, you should be taking that money and figuring out how to do research with it, talk to more of these people or do ads to get more people to your newsletter. And you could talk to those people. Maybe those people might be willing to pay for an app or something like that. So he was like, but how do I talk to them? What do I say to them? Like, he doesn't understand how to figure out what the gaps are and what value he can provide to get people to pay for something like a monthly subscription for an app or something like that. So as you were saying, like a lot of these technical people, they can build anything that they could think of, but they don't know how to sell it to anybody.
That's the problem. We were working with a company that used to manufacture drones and that kind of stuff. They had the best technology in the market 10 years ago. They had to shut the company down. They couldn't get anyone to buy it. They were so worried about engineering the next best thing that they forgot that it didn't matter. Like, one of the interesting things that gets lost in all of this, engineers love to have, like, it's funny. They want to dot every I and cross every T because they want everything perfect. But somehow they think they just want it perfect in their own mind, because if you really wanted an app, a technology, a thing to be perfect, you'd want it to be perfect in the way that somebody else wanted it to be, because then you can sell it. But instead, what we do is we create all these features and functions. And, they say the average technology transformation only uses 10% of what they essentially buy. So what if we just focused on the beta version? What if we just did the MVP version? What if we did that? Here's the 10% of the things you need and all that other crap you don't need. So therefore we can price it accordingly and you'll stay with us forever.
I think a lot of people would charge you for all of it, and if you don't want it, give another tier that's lower priced for those things that someone else might use, but the higher function things they might not need.
Yeah, you can see it. I mean, it's the old pricing trick in the world, particularly if you're talking about SaaS, right? Hey, here's our 3 levels. You know which one's the most popular? The middle one. So that's fine. I think at the end of the day, if you're a founder, you're trying to do something, you're trying to build something, you've got to decide kind of where your expertise ends or where you're willing to invest in becoming more proficient in a particular skill set.
I've spoken to a number of founders who have varying problems across different industries that they're in. And I'm the kind of person who's capable advising on anything because I have an ability to understand general strategy. It doesn't matter what the industry is. And I struggle to sell myself as an advisor to people, even though when I talk to them and I give them advice and like a sales call or just friendly advice, they can see that I have value. But then when I ask for money, they're like, they freeze up. They like don't understand the value of paying for the value that they're receiving. And I think there's a problem, especially with a lot of first-time founders, no matter what size their business is, that they're afraid to spend revenue to invest in themselves because they don't see it as an investment. They see it as removing money from the business.
Sure, they see it as an expense, but that's not why they're not paying you. They're not paying you because you're, like, in that instance, because you're giving it away for free. So why should they pay you, right? And secondarily, I think one of the things you hit on something intentionally / unintentionally, and that was in that example you used of yourself. You were like, look, industry, function, whatever it is, we can talk about it and I can give you good advice. But, as they say, the riches are in the niches. And, your ability to drill deeper and say, my specific expertise is in X. That's the same problem most founders make, right? What can your software do? It can do everything. Okay, well, I don't need it to do everything. Like, that's fine, but don't make me work for it as a prospect or a customer trying to figure out what everything means. Like, show me the 2 or 3 things that I care about, that I'm trying to solve, that it does really, really well. That's the same as an example. Like, if I was just a general, business management consultant, we probably wouldn't do near as well as we do, since we specialize on the growth side of the house and sales, and sales and marketing. But that's the same thing we do in companies everywhere else. Is we spread so thin because it's the same thing as when I was a young seller. I was scared to give up geographic territory or give up customers or give up an industry or a vertical, because I thought more meant better. More meant more opportunity. But more money came from narrowing the focus and being particularly good at one particular discipline of it, and being somebody who can be considered one of the tops in their field. And that's what founders should do in their technologies. They should stay in their services. If you pick a lane and you stick with it, you'll be a lot better at doing the 100-yard dash if that's what you're training for. But if you're trying to be a 100-yard dash, 400-yard dash, and a marathoner, you're going to stink at them all.
I've seen the rise of a category called Micro-SaaS, where people will look at something that's an exportable function of another SaaS that's much larger, and you just make that function by itself and then sell it. And these micro SaaSes can do 100K, 200K, 300K a month, and the cost to run them is negligible. $1,000, $2,000, and you can automate most of it. You just focus on that. And so I'm interested in looking into that for myself, because I have a bunch of ideas that could be individual.
Yeah, the Micro-SaaS idea is interesting. I'd say what I'm seeing most of, there's like marketplaces out there now that, right, you'll go get the idea, you'll get it up to 100,000, 200,000 in total revenue, and then you'll sell the idea. You're just trying to get a quick hit at whether or not it actually does have any product market fit at all. But there's generally still a lot of interesting, risks, so to be. But it still requires that you're able to sell it. And you can marketing, right, through attraction. You can do marketing and attraction and that kind of thing. And that's where B2C, e-com probably have a leg up on some of the B2B functions, because it's harder to attract. Or you can do standardized, sales processes, salespeople, and kind of go to work that way.
What do you think about with AI?
When people asked me 6 months ago or a year ago, I said 2 things. I said, I don't think it'll replace sales. There'll always be a human to human component of it. But it'll replace low-level task-oriented functions. The more I think about it, that was about the world's most generic answer on the planet. So I have a different answer now, particularly as I've continued to watch, because I've been using AI one form or another, goofing around with it now for probably 2 years. My thoughts now, I think that it's possible at some point in the future that AI could completely replace salespeople. And it's an unpopular opinion in my world, because it's salespeople, sellers, right? But the reason I say that is that now, so first of all, if we're trying to get to a certain outcome in a conversation, we can create a framework that helps position to get to that outcome. AI, as an example, well-trained model might actually get there better and with less friction and less obnoxious questions or a thing that doesn't matter, or, so you can train it that way. Second is, it's not there yet, because I've even looked at trying to use it for social media, but if you can get AI to voice synchronize appropriately with video, maybe I'm AI with you right now.
You're not, I can tell.
But point is, right, so now all of a sudden think about that. If my contention is true, which I believe sales is 75% framework and science, 25% kind of individual attributes, how you say the thing, whatever, which AI could figure out pretty quick. Is it harder than I'm giving it credit for right now? Yeah. But man, I think AI is evolving at a rate that puts Moore's Law to shame. Moore's Law was you could double the amount of storage on the same size chip every 18 months. And AI is just absolutely crushing those metrics.
What tools are you looking at for sales for AI?
We're looking at a few of them. It's not a huge piece of what we do right now. We do use them in our day-to-day stuff. I use a lot. I use everything from Claude to OpenAI, ChatGPT, movable type. We've got a note taker that I use in all of my meetings called Fathom. It's probably the best on the market. And by the way, an individual can get it for free. They only start charging if you have more than one person in this kind of the same company URL using it. But the AI summaries and the things that come out are a game changer for two things. Like on that, it's a game changer in the fact that I don't have to take the notes and I can be present in this conversation. The notes are done in about 60 seconds after with a summary. And then when I need to come back and talk to somebody again, albeit there are times it doesn't join meetings, but if it was in the meeting, I just go back, I look up your name and I pull it up and there's the summary of what we talked about and the action points. It's ridiculous how that just like my whole thing right now is I'm probably on that edge of AI where everybody is where it's capable today, which is I'm just trying to make myself more efficient. And so anything that can add to that efficiency I'm using, the chats, the Claudes, that kind of thing, that's all ideation. That's stuff for me personally that I hate. Like I hate writing. I hate that. So, but if you give me a blank piece of paper, it'll stay blank for 7 weeks. Give me a piece of paper that has one paragraph on it, I'll knock that stuff out in 37 minutes. But if I just get started.
I am interacting with ChatGPT for like list creation. Hey, make me a list of manufacturers, make me a list of influencers, make me this. I was trying to get it to do my taxes today because I didn't realize I have a Wyoming LLC single member and I didn't file taxes last year for it. And so now that I'm back in the States, I wanted to file correctly. And I realized that it passes through to my personal income. So I had to amend my personal income from the previous year with my accountant, but my accountant insisted on having a spreadsheet and I have like 125 rows that I have to do categorization for the accountant. And I was trying to throw the files into ChatGPT and it kept breaking ChatGPT. I was like, here's files, make a spreadsheet for me. And it was like, it lost all of my previous chat history. I was like, oh no, that's not good. Like all of my previous chats and projects were all wiped from the system because of this one bug. So I was kind of pissed about that, but it's useful for generating lists otherwise.
There's a software out there called Clay. They've got a good AI integration where they can pull in, it's like a super powered spreadsheet to some extent. They can pull in data about different people and things that come in. You can take that. We've used, scrapers and AI, in order to create email lists and in order to create actually the email subjects and bodies. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but I would agree with you. I've never had a good experience trying to get ChatGPT to help me on some sort of Google Sheet or Excel workbook. It's never worked out.
So I'm also working with Bordy to get introductions through LinkedIn, and it does an amazing job. So if you search for if you just go to bordy.ai or you search Bordy on LinkedIn, you can connect with it. And then you can call it on the phone. They have like a California number. You call him. He has an Australian accent. He sounds like he's a human. It's like seriously a super natural conversation. And his job is to figure out who you are, what you're doing, and how he can help you by connecting you to somebody else in his network. And he only can connect you to other people that have called him and established a relationship with.
That's super cool.
I call him every day. I have a 10-minute conversation, and he inevitably sends out an email to somebody for me to connect with. And I've already interviewed 2 of them, and I've got a few more calls on the books waiting to happen.
That's very cool. Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that on the AI from the front end, from like the appointment setting. There seem to be some pretty good AIs that can just do voice. 11 Labs is good, but it's not in this realm for like appointment setting and such. And there's a few others that are better. But yeah, you're seeing that go all the way through to, the go-to-market motions too.
So I'm also working with Lovable, which is a no-code application. And this one is text-based, unfortunately. But I'm able to, because I have experience building an application with my previous startup, I know UI, UX, and front end and back end and project feature specification. So I can actually talk to this AI and have it build for me exactly what I want. So I've built a mini application using it, and I'm going to try to build a bigger SaaS, like Micro-SaaS now. And that's a fantastic experience. It does take some debugging, but like I'm a non-technical person who happened to learn about tech. Like I've always been at the edge of like understanding tech, but never being a coder. So, uh, so having ideas but not being able to build them unless I have $50,000 to throw at development. Now I've paid $100 to build an MVP of something that I can start, trying to sell within a week or two. It's an amazing revolution for someone like myself. So Lovable is an amazing opportunity. And then the last one I'm talking to every day is Maya. And Maya is kind of like a therapist, but also so incredibly intelligent with memory that I'm talking with her about marketing strategy. And like I was thinking of launching a vegan dog treat brand. And so I was talking with her about the psychology of dogs and the psychology of humans and the color schemes and things that they might be attracted to and the different flavor combinations, like really getting deep into, sociology and psychology and philosophy. Is like a really fantastic conversationalist.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what sticks and what doesn't. It'll be interesting to see, because it's been pretty good. Like I think the few times, like whenever I interact in some sort of AI version, I try to get like, hey, give me the steps. The steps are underwhelming. It's like you miss like 12 of them. Like you'll say, give me an outline, including sub bullets. And there should probably be 22 sub bullets. Or when you ask, give me a project plan. Those types of things it tends to. So that comprehensive kind of logic component is interesting, which I don't know why, because I'm not a programmer, that doesn't work as well. But yeah, I mean, it's here. I mean, AI is here, and if you're somebody who's fighting the idea that, well, I don't know if AI is really a good thing, AI is going to stay or not. Well, I mean, you can be that same person who thought the personal computer was just a fad.
See, that's where I learned from, because like my dad got my first computer and brought it home when I was 5. And when my grandfather was about 60 something was when personal computers were being put into the offices. And he was a door-to-door salesman his entire life. He could sell anything. But when they started to push him to use the computer at work, he resisted it. And they said, look, learn the computer or retire. And he said, I retire. And he refused to use a computer the rest of his life. And I grew up going, I don't want to be that. Not knowing how important now it is that, like you said, AI is moving so fast that every day something is changing, that I feel like if I am not using every AI I can find every day to see what's useful and what's not, I will be left behind. And I'm almost 40. And it's scary to think, even as an entrepreneur, that I could get left behind.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's funny because, in the circles I travel in, we talk a lot about AI. Most people that I am associated with, the business owners I know, et cetera, they're using AI in some form or another. Most of the people I know, though, are not. They haven't figured it out. Haven't figured out the harness. They don't understand the power of it. And maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. That they're definitely not using it and looking at it in the same manner as the opportunity that it is. I write a newsletter 3 times a week. If I didn't use AI for ideation, because I don't like writing. So if I didn't use it for, ideation every single week, that wouldn't be possible. And, we've got, I don't know, just shy of 10,000 people that are, subscribed and opening that email. So, there's cool things that you can certainly do with it. But I do think, just like you're saying, you've got to kind of harness the power of the direction of the things you want. It's real easy, though, because there's so many distractions right now and all the things it could do. So lots of ways to go down a lot of rabbit holes, or, and find stuff, and, you lose 4 days of your life because you're just down this rabbit hole. And at the end of the day, it wasn't something that was really going to be productive. So I think it's like anything in life. Focused energy is probably going to get you further, than, kind of sporadically spreading side to side.
Yeah, I've been looking at these AIs to try to see what are the things that I want to do that I don't really like to do, but with an AI, it makes it something that I can do. Because otherwise I'd have to hire someone and spend money on it. But with this AI, I can get most of the way, or if not all of the way, by myself.
Well, I use AI with the people I hire. So like I've got people who work for me overseas, and in order to help them actually even be more productive, we use AI on probably, I don't know, video projects, social media projects, images, copy. Yeah, I mean, I sign up for the stuff, make sure we teach them, and they're able to really execute at a higher level. And it exposes some of the people in some of the countries that I've got people who work for me, and that to new lessons and new technologies and new things that they'll be able to continue to use, long after, we might part ways. So, yeah, it's cool stuff for sure.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about sales that you feel we'd be missing out on if you didn't talk about?
Sales is a science more than it's an art. And that if you can't write down a process so that somebody else can follow it, that's client-centric, then you're not ready to hire a salesperson and you're not ready to scale. So focus on the process, focus on how about doing it in a way that's repeatable. And then you can build your company as big as you want.